welcome to Crimes Through Time, a weekly snapshot of crime history. In 1911, Frederick Henry Thomas, aged 38, was outwardly a respectable man, working as a commission agent. He lived with his wife and 3 children at 38 Brunswick Road, Poplar, London. But Frederick had a secret. For the past 3 years, he had been having an affair with 32-year-old Harriet Ann Erkhardt. Harriet was also married. Her husband Ernest was employed as a fireman on a collier ship trading between Goole and London. He would only be home 1 or 2 nights a week and would send a letter ahead of his arrival to let her know she should expect him home. During his absence, Frederick would visit Harriet at her home at 3 Rossbury Terrace, Greenwich. Ernest was not completely blind to the affair. He had had his suspicions in December 1909. When he raised them, she reassured him that he had nothing to worry about. It would be April 1911 when he became fully aware of the infidelity. Harriet left Ernest to live with Frederick, but it was short-lived and she returned to him under the proviso that Frederick was never to set foot in their home again. Harriet promised she would never see Frederick again. She was lying, of course, and the affair picked up where it left off. By August 1911, another man had caught the eye of Harriet, her husband's shipmate Bruno Koch. On the 16th of August, Ernest had invited Bruno to spend an evening with them, with Bruno accompanying Harriet to the theatre when Ernest had to return to the ship to start his shift. The affair started that night. Harriet decided to end things with Frederick and wrote him a letter telling him that Ernest had not gone away as planned, so she could not see him. She then spent her time with Bruno. The couple were in bed at Harriet's marital home when they were awoken in the early hours of the 19th of August by noise downstairs. Bruno hid in the kitchen on the first floor while Harriet headed down to investigate. She was confronted in the passageway by Frederick. He had broken in through an open window, and in the parlour he had found Bruno's vest and coat, which had his discharge book in the pocket. Frederick asked if Bruno was there. She confirmed that he was, but he was sleeping alone. He pushed past her and headed upstairs to see for himself. Unsatisfied by what he had seen and filled with jealous rage, he attacked Harriet at the bottom of the stairs with a razor, cutting her throat. He left the house and set up watch, waiting for Bruno to leave. After many hours, he went home, but not before being seen by a workman at 4:40 a.m. Bruno would come out of hiding at 7 a.m. to discover Harriet dead. On the body was a postcard with the message, quote, "I hope Mrs. Erkhardt and Mr. Koch had a nice evening." Frederick also sent a similar postcard to Ernest in Goole. The police called Dr. Hugh Davis to the scene. He found a large, deep wound on Harriet's neck, so deep the windpipe had been severed through to the vocal cords. She had died from shock and loss of blood. First interviewed was Ernest. He had a cast-iron alibi. He was at sea at the time of the murder. He firmly pointed the finger at Frederick, who was quickly arrested. In custody, he fully confessed to the murder, and he told the police that he had given a full account of his actions and the motive in a letter that they could find on the mantelpiece at his home. Blood-stained clothes were also found hidden. On the 22nd of August at around 12:15 a.m, Sergeant Everett of Blackheath Road Police Station entered Frederick's cell to find that he had attempted to take his own life. Frederick said, quote, "I have done this with the razor with which I did the other job. I secreted it in my boot, and I told the detective that I had thrown it away in Blackheath Lane." 6 letters were found addressed to his wife and friends, along with the following note, quote, "I went about quite prepared for the pouncing down of the police. You see, by this note I went about quite prepared to take my own life. I had the razor in my left boot, and I had not thrown it away. Signed F. H. Thomas." He recovered and his trial began at the Old Bailey on the 16th of October 1911, before Justice Scruton. Frederick presented a defence of insanity. There was no evidence to support this other than his attempt on his life in prison, but in a capital case it was worth a try. His defence was rejected, and it took the jury mere minutes to deliberate to find him guilty of murder. Mr. Justice Scruton passed the death sentence against Frederick, stating he hoped it would serve as a warning against lust and jealousy. Frederick was unmoved when hearing his fate. He bent his head in sullen submission before being removed to the cells. He appealed the sentence, and this was heard on the Criminal Appeals Court on the 30th of October, before Mr. Justice Darling, Mr. Justice Banks, and Mr. Justice Hamilton. The defence argued that while the facts of the case was not in dispute, Frederick's full defence was not fully put to the jury by the judge. The defence being that while Frederick was sane before the crime and after the crime, it was only during the crime that he was insane and didn't know what he was doing. The judgment was delivered by Mr. Justice Darling. He stated that it was proven that Frederick had murdered Harriet and that the motive was jealousy. The insanity defence was pure hypothesis, and that the judge's summing up was complete with no omissions. The appeal was dismissed. Frederick was hanged at Wandsworth Prison on Wednesday the 15th of November 1911 at 9 a.m. It was carried out by John Ellis and Thomas Pierrepoint. He weighed 152 pounds, or 10 stone 9, and was given a drop of 6 feet. This caused the 5th and 6th cervical vertebrae to be dislocated and a laceration to the spinal cord. The inquest was held before Coroner Mr. John Troutbeck. Deputy Governor Carey and prison surgeon Dr. Pitcairn officially identified Frederick and testified that the execution had been carried out, quote, expeditiously. Dr. Freiberger, who carried out Frederick's post-mortem, found older scars on his neck and forearms, thought to be from several previous attempts on his life. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and tell me what you think of this case in the comments below, and I look forward to welcoming you in the next one.